Casino Royale is a spy film and is directed by Martin Campbell and stars Daniel Craig. So, of all the Bond films, this was the one I was most looking forward to. And without even hiding it, this is my absolute favorite 007 movie, and for me, this is the one that gets it the most right. Firstly, Daniel Craig, in my opinion, is the best Bond because of this movie. While Quantum of Solace and Spectre weren't the greatest of movies, and it did feel like Daniel Craig was phoning it in those two films, with this and Skyfall, this is where Daniel Craig puts all his energy into the role. In my past reviews, I've criticized the James Bond character for being one-dimensional, and while Timothy Dalton did play him differently, for a majority of the films it felt like I was watching the same actor playing the same character over and over again with little change. But with the portrayal that Daniel Craig gives to James Bond, it's completely different. This James Bond is completely stripped of what he is. This is very much James Bond at his earliest stages. This film more or less is a reboot of the series. And for those who don't know, Casino Royale was the very first Bond novel that Ian Fleming published. And having read the actual novel, while the film does change the time period and a few certain things, this is probably the closest thing that a Bond film has ever come to capturing the essence of the Bond novel. This is an adaptation done right. And with the portrayal that Daniel Craig gives to James Bond, he is more emotional, more aggressive, and he also lets his guard down at some points as well. And what happens to him in this film definitely defines who he is later on. Everything else in this film is just fantastic. The Bond girl played by Eva Green is just spectacular, and easily one of my favorite Bond girls. Eva Green brings a lot to the role. She's charming, witty, gorgeous, and she's also able to stand up against Bond as well. She's one of the few characters to actually bring Bond's guard down, especially with what happens near the end of the film. Also, spoiler for those who haven't seen the movie, her character's death is one of the most heartbreaking deaths in all of the James Bond movies. The villain, played by Mads Mikkelsen, is great. Pretty much any role that Mads Mikkelsen plays, I enjoy him very much. The action scenes as well are some of the best you will ever see. The chase scene near the beginning of the film is one of the best chase scenes ever put on cinema, and complete credit to Martin Campbell for the way he directs these scenes, as these are very pulse-pounding, tension-filled, and complete jolts to the blood. I also liked the poker game in the film, and it's one of the few movies that have made a poker game in the film enjoyable to watch. Overall, this is to me a perfect movie, and how a Bond film should be done. Daniel Craig shines in his first outing as James Bond, and brings a level of emotion that was really lacking from the previous incarnations. And despite some of the later Bond films, for me, Daniel Craig is still my favorite James Bond. And quite honestly, there's not one thing that really bothered me. The film had a great story that I was engaged with. I found myself entertained by the action scenes and the characters. And if you haven't seen this film, I would very much give it a high recommendation. Even if you're not the biggest James Bond fan, there's still something to appreciate about this film. And I'm gonna give Casino Royale a 10 out of 10. Thank you so much for watching. If you like what you see, be sure to like my Facebook page, follow me on Twitter, and subscribe to my channel below. As always, I'm NETX5. Thank you for watching.